When you've collected home movies for over 30 years, you naturally accumulate an awful lot of pictures. I'd moved around a lot in the last 3 decades, so locating and looking at miles of film for interesting shots was a king-size scavenger hunt. It's like rummaging through an old attic. You turn up a lot of junk, but occasionally, if you're lucky, you may find a rare masterpiece. And I think I did. It was a long-forgotten can of film. Lifting the lid was almost like opening King Tut's tomb. For inside were pictures which no one had ever seen before. Home movies, taken years ago within the confines of the largest, costliest, and most imposing private estate on the North American continent, San Simeon, the fabled citadel of William Randolph Hearst. Located a little over 200 miles up the Pacific coast from Hollywood, on a high peak of the Santa Lucia Mountain. This past summer, I revisited San Simeon. The last time I was here was by invitation, but today it's open house for everyone in the world. I paid my admission fee and was one of the 2,000 tourists that day who took the 5-mile bus trip up the Enchanted Hill. This castle opened Christmas Eve, 1925, was the focal point of the giant Hearst Ranch, at that time spreading over 300,000 acres, nearly half the size of the state of Rhode Island. La Casa Grande, housing the largest private collection of art objects in the world, valued at over $50 million. Mr. Hearst called it his little hideaway. The last time I saw this pool, those beautiful marble columns from Italy had just been uncrated and put in place. I slipped away from the tour for a moment to see if there were any changes in the guest houses. No, my little bungalow was still there. Imagine me sleeping in Cardinal Richelieu's bed. Today, San Simeon is a state monument. But during its heyday, which spanned the roaring 20s and the fabulous 30s, it was the gathering place of the Hollywood immortals, with guests like Marie Dressler, seen here clowning with the host, William Randolph Hearst. That outfit she's wearing looks like a flea-bitten version of Touch a Mink. That pretty blonde over there with the short bobbed hair is Marion Davies. Although she typified glamour on the screen, at San Simeon she joined in the fun. Marion Davies was one of the best-liked members of the motion picture colony. Beloved by everyone who knew her, she endowed many charities still in existence. That's Charlie Chaplin kidding around. The man coming out of the door at that moment was the mayor of New York City, Jimmy Walker. If these pictures seem to reflect a certain frivolity, you must remember they were taken at that wonderful carefree period in our history. The First World War had ended, and the second one was nowhere in sight. That youth on the right is Adolphe Monjou. Yes, notables from every walk of life visited San Simeon. That's Paul Block, the newspaper publisher, chatting with the mayor. The fellow kneeling down in front of this group is George K. Arthur, the comedian. And the attractive girl on the left in the print dress is Hedda Hopper. Standing next to Hedda is the founder of America's largest bank, A.P. Giannini. John Gilbert and his wife, Virginia Bruce. Claire Windsor and Dolores Del Rio. They're down at the tennis court, watching Chaplin hit a few to Bill Tilden. That teenager on the right is Carol Lombard. Nothing pleased the host more than when everybody got out of doors in the afternoon to take part in some group activity. He was proud of San Simeon and eager for his guests to enjoy it to the full. Many people have the sense of acquisitive possessiveness, but William Randolph Hearst was the only man ever able to indulge it to the hilt. But it was a strange paradox that this fighting giant of journalism with all his vast collection of material wealth should also have a tender passion for the treasures of nature, flowers, trees, and animals. Yes, Mr. Hearst was a happy man at San Simeon. Whether he was conducting business with his secretary or welcoming a famous guest like Lindy. In town, he was very reticent about having his picture taken, but up here he seemed to have no objection. He'd even kid about it. Part of the daily routine was to move the guests to the adjoining zoo to witness the feeding of the animals. When this ranch was at its peak, the Zoo and Game Preserve, the largest private collection in the world, was established on 2,000 San Simeon acres, protected from the guests by an 8-foot-high wire fence 10 miles long. Visitors were made aware of Mr. Hearst's tenderness toward animals when they drove up the mountainside, as they were confronted by large signs admonishing them to always drive slowly. As Hedda Hopper once said, a visit to the Hearst Ranch was a ticket to Never Never Land. Never has there been such a place, and never will we see its likes again. As an animal collector, Mr. Hearst started modestly with a herd of rare, pure white fallow deer imported from Asia. Then, patriotically, he added Montana black buffalo, but had to go far afield again to gather exotic animals from all over the world. And when these animals stopped in the middle of the road, you stopped. Yes, there was hardly anything in the Bronx Zoo or any other great American collection that could not have been found at San Simeon at its peak. If you were with us at Malibu Beach a little earlier in this show, you'll recognize my old friend Arthur Lake. Camels or horses, he's always been the bravest in our set. Watch out, Dagwood, or you'll get your arm in a sling again. Seriously, I'll always be indebted to Arthur for helping to make possible many of these pictures. He was the one who introduced me to Mr. Hearst. And that's Arthur's pretty wife, Pat Lake. She's Marion Davies' niece and was a great favorite of Mr. Hearst. She was also very helpful in persuading the host to pose for some of these pictures. Before I left that day, I had to take one more shot of that main entrance. Everything seemed so much the same that I almost expected our host to come out of the door. This next shot was Mr. Hearst's own idea. He said, let's make believe the camera's running backwards. As the time came to leave, and we started down from the enchanted hill, a familiar quotation came to my mind. I think it was Kipling who said, "The tumult and the shouting die, the captains and the kings depart." It seems so true here at San Simeon. Long after its builder's vast newspaper chain and political influences are forgotten, he will be remembered as America's greatest art collector and the creator of San Simeon.
driving through the scenic coastal area south of Monterey, you come to the hilltop setting of one of the man-made wonders of our time, San Simeon, perched like some mythical castle overlooking the Pacific. This fabulous estate, built by William Randolph Hearst, is now a state historical monument and is open to the public. The main building is called the Casa Grande, the big house, and it has 100 rooms. Daily guided tours will take you through portions of the Casa Grande, out to the guest houses and into the gardens. Everywhere you look at San Simeon, you'll see classic statuary. Some of it brought from Europe, and some of it made especially for Hearst by old world craftsmen here at San Simeon. It is estimated that Hearst spent $1 million a year collecting art and bringing over historic buildings piece by piece. The Neptune swimming pool is one of the most beautiful in the whole world. Italian craftsmen took 3.5 years to complete the intricate mosaic work used in the pool itself. The large fountain statuary, which faces the ancient Greco-Roman temple, represents Venus rising from the water. The pool holds 250,000 gallons of spring-fed water, big enough even for the large groups which Hearst entertained here. Inside each room is a treasure house of paintings, silver pieces, carvings, art objects of many types and of many periods. This rare French Gothic tapestry of a hunting scene is valued at $150,000. A few zebras grazing about the grounds are all that remain of what was once the largest private zoo in America. Hearst, shown at age 35, made San Simeon his headquarters. Here he ruled his empire of newspapers and magazines. This bedroom is in one of the castle towers. It was not unusual for Hearst to invite 30 or 40 guests at a time. They slept surrounded by such wealth as this ornate gilt ceiling. The Roman pool, located inside the Casa Grande, is 84 feet long. It was patterned after a 5th century mausoleum in Ravenna, Italy. Construction of Hearst Castle began in 1919 and continued until 1947. The architect was Julia Morgan, but she has stated that Hearst himself was the real architect, and she merely followed his instructions. Hearst thought of his castle as a shrine of beauty, and he brought to it art objects from European palaces and monasteries, a fabulous collection of old world culture. There are several tours of the castle. The upstairs portion was originally closed to the public, but is now included in the tour program. The ground where the castle now stands was originally a summer retreat where the Hearst family camped out. Located in the Santa Lucia mountain range, the property owned by the family at one time totaled 275,000 acres. In building the Casa Grande, the guest houses, and other portions of the castle, Hearst is reputed to have spent $30 million. Hearst Castle and its vast storehouse of art treasures was a fascinating adventure for our 3A camera crew. We're sure it will be for you too.
Here's a nice guy, Johnny Weissmuller. He was making a date for a premiere that night. Everyone on the lot was talking about that opening. It was a new picture called She Done 'Em Wrong. And no one was more excited than this young man. He was playing the male lead opposite Paramount's newest sensation, Mae West, the voluptuous blonde with the swaying hips and the pungent quotes. This was a big night for Mae. She thanked Sid Grauman for the use of the theater and hoped everyone would like her new picture. If you watch very closely, you can almost hear her say, "Why don't you come up and see me sometime?" Mae could well be proud of this moment. The whole town turned out to pay her homage. There's the King of Hollywood, Douglas Fairbanks Sr. And wherever you saw the King, you were bound to see the Queen, Mary Pickford, with Luella Parsons. Clark Gable with Rhea Gable, and Ruth Eddy. Carol Lombard and a group of friends. Walter Houston. There he is with Jack Dempsey and Max Baer. There's Russ Colombo with the beautiful Sally Blaine. She's Loretta Young's sister. Looks like Weissmuller got his date. Loopy Valet. All right, so I'm a bad photographer. I cut off his head. And of course, George Raft was there. Mae West made her first picture with him. The master of ceremonies was a very young Dick Powell. I've taken a lot of pictures of Dick through the years. I was there when he took his first plunge at his new home in Toluca Lake. I remember when he got his first car, his first baby, and his first suit with a belt in the back. And I was with him when he caught his first marlin off Catalina Island. This was a very enjoyable trip. Weather great, fishing excellent. That's the bait. That's the size I usually bring home. Man, that's fast action. Dick's got a strike. Keep the line taut, Dick. Don't give him any slack. These are always anxious moments when they dance on their tail, trying to throw the hook. This was a dandy, over 200 pounds. Boy, the chances a happy fisherman will take when he's excited. Yes, in the early 30s, Catalina was the place to fish, and Malibu was the place to own a beach house. It was a badge of rank to be a member of this colony, well worth the 25-mile drive to and from work every day. It was Shantytown Deluxe, where each shanty cost thousands of dollars. That's Arthur Lake, one of my first friends in Hollywood. You know, digging up old pictures like this can be quite a discouraging shock to your ego. I'd always sort of remembered myself as looking like this fellow in a bathing suit. Well, maybe not exactly. That's Joel McRae. And certainly not like this fellow. That's Buddy Rogers. Here's a couple more Malibu beachcombers. John Bowles, Buster Collier, and Robert Wolseley. As time went on, in addition to Malibu, many of the stars built big homes further down the beach. That's Cary Grant. Sounds like Cary's having a party. It isn't often that you can catch this guy napping. And here's another rare shot. Nowadays, you very seldom see a picture of Gertrude Lawrence, a charming girl. In the same group, Gregory Ratoff and the beautiful Claire Windsor. How would you like to have this lovely young lady for a neighbor? That's Norma Shearer. She just dropped in from next door. And Irene Dunn came right from the studio. There's the old Hollywood Hotel at Hollywood and Highland. And there's the #1 citizen of Beverly Hills, Mary Pickford. Most of the big stars lived in the hills of Beverly. Here's the home of the most dynamic redhead ever to streak across the Hollywood sky, Clara Bow. And there's the it girl with her husband, Rex Bell, right after they were married. I like Adolf Zucker's description of Clara Bow. He said, she danced even when her feet were not moving. Some part of her was always in motion, if only her big rolling eyes. Here's what happens when you have a little film left on the roll. That's a very young Lou Ayres making like Tarzan. Only in home movies could you catch Lou in a mood like this. Actually, he's always been a very serious young man. It's interesting to note that Lou Ayres got started in movies playing opposite Hollywood's biggest stars. Here we go through the Paramount Gate. There's Will Rogers. That's Charles Bickford. All the stars were nice to us autograph hounds. That's Carol Lombard. This is the first movie star who ever invited me into his home, Richard Arlen. And this is the first Hollywood swimming pool I ever saw. Dick was the hottest star at Paramount at this moment. He had just made Wings, which was to win an Academy Award. I had to get a picture in that pool to send back home, so Dick took over on camera. You can see I was no Weissmuller. Lou Ayres. This was taken a couple of years before he made All Quiet on the Western Front. At this time, he was making a picture with Greta Garbo called The Kiss. It was the last silent picture made at MGM. This was the week that Grauman's Chinese Theater opened. As a matter of fact, this is the day it opened, in May 1927. The picture was King of Kings. The people started gathering early in the afternoon. By nightfall, it was a madhouse. That's the beautiful Dolores Costello. The crowd really went crazy when Jean Harlow walked in. Such pushing and shoving, they knocked over lamps. Gary Cooper took it in stride. And so did Gloria Swanson. And there's Janet Gaynor and Charles Farrell. This was the year she won the first Academy Award for her performance in Seventh Heaven. The next day, I went down to the Warner Brothers studio on Sunset Boulevard. It afterward became a bowling alley and I believe is now a television station. I was lucky to get inside, but it was very difficult to get any great shots on account of the lights and the quality of the film at that time. There's Monty Blue working with a young lady named Myrna Loy. And there's Tom Mix doing a scene with a very pretty young lady, Sally Blaine. She's Loretta Young's sister. John Barrymore and Dolores Costello. I didn't shoot this. It was taken by the cameraman, and I got a copy later. But you'll see that it was done as a gag, as it has a comedy finish. This is the way they worked in silent pictures. Off-screen mood music and the director talking to the actors as the scene is being shot. All right, John, kiss her. Okay, cut. Cut! Mr. Barrymore, it's time for lunch. Outside the studio, I got another shot of the very handsome Mr. Barrymore. Then I went up to the Chaplin Studios on Sunset and La Brea. Chaplin and Fairbanks had come backstage at the Orpheum Theater on opening night, and I asked them if it was possible to visit their studio. Chaplin told me to come out this particular morning that he was entertaining a British military dignitary, and there would be a lot of cameramen there, and I would be welcome to take some pics. That's his brother Sidney back there. This guy Charlie sure took some funny falls. I tried to ride one of those things myself once, but I assure you it wasn't quite so humorous. Sidney could ride it. As a matter of fact, I'm sure Charlie could have if he'd wanted to. Sidney Chaplin was quite a comedian himself. Pickford. The first time I ever saw Mary Pickford. America's sweetheart. The biggest movie star the world has ever known. She had just received a present from some fan and very graciously consented to pose for a picture. Doug Fairbanks Sr. I don't know how I ever kept the camera steady enough to take a picture of my boyhood idol. I asked him if he would do one of those leaps off a balcony, and he did. This was my first trip to Hollywood, and I said, man, this is it. Horace Greeley was right. Notice the Fairbanks influence. There's the train coming to take us back east. As I stood on the rear platform of that train, watching the golden sun sink into the blue Pacific, I murmured those famous words, I shall return.